Now, Biden's full-throated endorsement of his vice president thrusts Kamala Harris into the global spotlight as her party's main hope of defeating Trump at the ballot box. A closer look now at the woman who could be in the running to become the US's first female president. Etienne Adji and Nicholas Rushworth report.
Triumphant, Kamala Harris enters center stage, cheered by Democratic voters, celebrating Joe Biden's 2020 win in the presidential election. She broke a major glass ceiling back then, becoming the first woman to be vice president of the United States.
While I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last. Because every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities.
Kamala Harris is 59. She was born in California to immigrant parents from Jamaica and India and studied law at Howard University in Washington, D.C. She rose in the legal profession, becoming California's first black attorney general and the first woman of South Asian heritage elected to the U.S. Senate.
On this vote, the yeas are 50
Her transition
and the
to
nays
the
are
White House
50%.
proved
It being
difficult.
equally
Critics said she was underwhelming. Her approval ratings were as bad or worse than Joe Biden's. In 2022, after the repeal of Roe v. Wade, Harris made a name for herself defending the right to abortion, and this year has been a key part of the Democrats' campaign.
You're going to be told that can't be done. It's never been done before. It's not time. They're not ready for it. And then this is the one I love. It's going to be a lot of hard work. Don't you listen. I eat no for breakfast.
Kamala Harris is on the cusp of history. The first female, black and South Asian vice president of the United States could possibly be chosen to take on Donald Trump and perhaps lead the Democrats to the White House for another 4 years.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Well, for more, we can bring in Ellen Kountz, professor at the Paris Business School INSEEC and also author of a book published in French with a title that translates to Vice Presidential Portraits, the incredible story of Kamala Harris. Thank you so much for being with us here on Daybreak on France 24 today. Is this
I'm delighted
the moment,
to be here.
Sorry to jump the gun there, is this the moment that Kamala Harris has been waiting for? And crucially, is she ready for it?
Okay, has she been waiting for this moment? I'm not sure. I think even 6 months ago, Joe Biden seemed like a very viable candidate. And unfortunately, his health decline in front of our very eyes has really been, I'm sure, even hard on her. Is she ready for the job? The fact of the matter is she's been doing the job. When you're vice president in America, you're following in the shadows of the president. So in terms of claiming knowledge of the content of the job and how to do the job effectively, as a progressive Democrat, she definitely has seen with her own eyes and has really participated at every high-level meeting there was, both domestically and internationally.
Now, of course, a lot of senior Democrats are falling in line behind her, publicly endorsing Kamala Harris. But others are concerned that over the past 4 years, we haven't necessarily seen so much of her on the public stage. She hasn't made a huge impact. She isn't hugely popular. Are those criticisms fair, do you think?
Totally fair. All of the above is true. But it was also part of the job. You know, we do a one president at a time system. So she was in the background very much on purpose. I don't think she was disliked. I think she's unknown, which is different. So we'll see how she can do in these next 103 days to make the case, not just for herself, for her potential running mate, who, by the way, could be a woman, and perhaps winning the winning the election. We have a system in the States where 50 states vote, but only 7 or 8 states decide, the famous swing states. So her choice of a VP will be very crucial in terms of, geographic diversity that will help her ticket.
You mentioned just then that there's a chance that Harris is, if indeed she is chosen to be the Democratic candidate, that her potential pick could be a woman. Do you think
Yes.
that would be a wise choice on the part of Harris?
I think that since we're in uncharted waters and we've had our hand forced into the situation, I'd say at this stage, given everything that's happened, she should definitely go for it and really make hay about the fact that we now have, she's 22 years younger than Donald Trump. So she's facing a man who's almost going to be in his 80s. That was a lot of fodder for the Republican side. We'll see how they do when it's their guy who's the old guy. So yes, it could be two young women.
And would that be a clever decision when you're thinking about just how close this election could be, and that the intention, one would assume, is to win voters over from the Trump camp? Would two women on the ticket have that desired effect?
Well, not among his hardcore base, but certainly the women in his base would have to ask themselves a lot of questions, perhaps privately, not so much publicly. When people are in the booth making their decision personal. So I'm not sure that I understand culturally in a lot of these, deep red states, as we call them in the deep South, that, it's not talking points that are popular with the Republican base. There's also another issue as the map has been moving, and I think that's one of the reasons this idea of what is winnable. So how do we, work out a map to win, to get to the famous 270 electoral college votes, because we have indirect elections, not direct elections for the presidency in the states. Maybe that should change in the decades to come. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that actually plays out, how women vote truly in the end.
Now, just to go back a couple of questions, many people might have forgotten that Harris actually tried to run against Biden for the Democratic Party's nomination in 2020. She actually ended up pulling out of the race before any of the caucuses due to a lack of funds, a lack of support. Does she have the grassroots support within the Democratic Party that she needs to become president?
Well, she has it now. I mean, she's coming into the race with the full-throated endorsement of the outgoing nominee, still the president. So she said something interesting in her statement. She said that she needs to win over and really earn this nomination and win it. But technically, I think she knows she's doing that strategically, politically, but technically she knows that she's actually won it because we vote for the nominee, right, within the party. So she and Biden ran together on the ticket. So she's the legal heir to the funds. She's the legal heir to the votes, if you see what I mean. But nonetheless, she has to, of course, try to convince and seduce nonetheless, because we're in such an unusual situation. But just from a pure statutes of the party, kind of legalese point of view, she's the legitimate heir to both the votes and the funds.
No explicit endorsement yet, though, from Barack Obama. How important is that? Should we read anything into that?
We should read into Obama's doing Obama. He's being very careful and very quiet. He let the Clintons go first. By the way, both, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton together endorsed Miss Harris. So I think it makes sense for Barack Obama to stay as quiet as possible up to and including the convention, which is now just about 25 days away.
And what about some criticism we've been hearing from the other camp? A fair bit of criticism, it's important to say. Republicans, for example, like to paint her as the Democrats' immigration czar who failed in her mission to secure the southern border. That's something that the Republicans like to seize on repeatedly when discussing Harris in public. How legitimate is that criticism when it comes to immigration specifically?
Well, it's totally illegitimate from the fact that the legislature or Congress didn't vote their own legislation. So to be really quick, what that means is actually there was a bill before the House and the Senate that was drawn up by the Republicans. It was agreed upon by the Democrats, and it didn't go through because Donald Trump didn't want a win on the southern border during Joe Biden's presidency. So it's become, unfortunately, a very cynical and partisan point. If it was really about immigration, I think everybody would understand that. So there were a lot of legislative efforts, but I think we're locked in something very different now. We're not locked into two parties who want to win democratically. We're locked into a system where one party still believes in these democratic values, and the other one wants to go toward a totally different system. So we have to be really careful about policy talk talk because there's no really sincere interest in policy anymore, unfortunately, on the Republican side.
Ellen Kountz, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Ellen Kountz, professor at the Paris Business School, INSEEC, and also author of a book published in French with a title that I hope I'm translating correctly as Vice Presidential Portraits, The Incredible Story of Kamala Harris. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on Daybreak today.
It was a pleasure. Hope to speak to you again soon. Bye.